Hey there, Mason Nation. This is Touch Base Live today. Everything you need to know about everything there is to know about baseball. My name's Erin Whitton. I'm your host today, and today we'll be discussing the playoffs thus far for Major League Baseball. First up on the menu is the NL wildcard game, which was between the Giants and the Mets. The Mets ended up getting shut out by the Giants 3-0, and it was a pitching duel between Syndergaard and Bumgarner. Noah Syndergaard, one of the Mets' young, talented pitchers, was going up against the ace of the Giants, Madison Bumgarner. And unfortunately for the Mets, their season ended early. So next up on the menu, the Cubs were visiting the Giants in the NLDS, and the Giants ended up losing to the Cubs 3-1. The fourth game of the series looked like the Cubs were going to lose it, but they ended up rallying for 4 runs in the 9th inning off of closer by committee for the San Francisco Giants. The Cubs have a really nice young core intact, with Chris Bryant, Addison Russell, Wilson Contreras, Anthony Rizzo, and Kyle Hendricks. All of these players factor together into President of Baseball Operations, Theo Epstein's big picture. After coming over from the Boston Red Sox to the Chicago Cubs, he brought a few of his executives with him. He brought Mr. McLeod, who is head of the player development, Mr. Raymond, assistant GM, and Jed Hoyer, who's the current GM of the Chicago Cubs. Overall, the Cubs, for years to come, are in really good standing. Their pitching staff was one of the best in baseball. They had a 2.90 combined ERA staff for the year, which is unheard of when thinking that all 5 of their starters had an ERA under 4, let alone 3 of them qualifying under an ERA of 3. Another thing to look at for the Cubs for the upcoming season and the NLCS is Jason Hayward, who has been working on mechanical and offensive issues all season long. He batted .230 this year with a .306 on-base percentage and a .325 slugging percentage, to go along with only 7 home runs in 142 games. For somebody that was given an 8-year contract worth over $180 million, you would think that the offensive stats would be a lot better. Also, to go along with that, on the other side of things is Madison Bumgarner, who continues a heroic postseason ever since the Giants have been winning since 2010 for the even years. He has a 2.11 combined ERA over 74 innings pitched, actually 102.1 innings pitched, with 74 hits given up. The Giants are going with, as said before, a closer by committee. Santiago Casilla used to be the old closer, but Derek Law is being installed as the new closer. The flamethrower was pretty good during the regular season, and he is taking over for Casilla and Sergio Romo, who both blew saves in games 3 and 4. Casilla was not used in game 4, but after the game was over, he expressed his displeasure for not being used and was found in tears near his locker. So it's unfortunate that things came to this for the Giants and that they lost the last game and will not continue their even-year trend for winning the World Series. To go along with their efforts, Buster Posey had somewhat of a down year. He hit a career-low .288 with 14 home runs. But for a catcher, that's pretty good. He played most of his games at catcher this year as opposed to rotating through first base. Many have to think that Posey is going to rebound from this season. But for a catcher, he's putting up great offensive numbers, and the Giants probably couldn't be more pleased with what they're getting. To go along with Buster Posey anchoring that lineup, the Giants have Denard Span, Joe Panik, and they have Belt back for next year, an exciting young core for an exciting team that is going to look to continue their trend of winning games and hopefully looking at contending for the 2017 World Series. Next up for the National League is the National League Division Series between the Nationals and the Dodgers. Currently at this point, the series is tied 2-2, and Game 4 will be held Thursday, October 13th. It is a matchup between Max Scherzer, and his opponent will be Rich Hill, who, coming over from the Athletics, was a very intriguing acquisition along with Josh Reddick. So Clayton Kershaw is a regular season stud, and many experts have been looking at the fact and have been coming into question whether or not, being a regular season stud, could he potentially be a postseason bust? He has 172 strikeouts to 11 walks in the regular season, which is unheard of. But in the playoffs, overall through his career, he has a combined 4.65 ERA as opposed to a 2.37 ERA in the regular season. On the other side of things, in the rotation, they have Kenta Maeda, who in his Game 3 start went 3 innings pitched. He only gave up 4 runs in 3 innings, which was not an encouraging start for the Dodgers. But they're looking to win Game 5 and to continue the series to face the Cubs in the NLCS. Kenley Jansen also factors into the back of the bullpen. He is a free agent this winter, and he's going to be looking for about $15 million or a little more. So he is to factor into the back of the bullpen. Rich Hill, Justin Turner, and Josh Reddick are all impending free agents, and they're all factors in the team right now when going up against the Dodgers. Many have to take into question what has happened to Carl Crawford, who was acquired in the Great Punto trade with the Boston Red Sox, who shed about $250 million to the Dodgers. They got back 4 quality prospects at the time, but the only prospect in that deal that actually panned out was Ruby De La Rosa, who is now currently a starting pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks and is looking at potentially having a second Tommy John surgery, but most recently received a platelet-rich plasma injection to hopefully stage off the operation. On the other side of things, for the Washington Nationals, Wilson Ramos has a free agency coming up this winter. He's going to be looking for a lot of money, but he tore his meniscus in his knee. So questions may arise about the durability and potentially what the earning power is for Wilson on the free agent market. Also, other questions are, will Steven Strasburg be okay coming back from elbow inflammation and a strained forearm? And will the Nationals be able to keep Mark Melancon at the back of their bullpen? So next up on things for today is the AL wildcard that occurred between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Baltimore Orioles. It was a pitching matchup between Baltimore Orioles staff ace Chris Tillman and the Toronto Blue Jays staff ace Marcus Stroman. Stroman was expected to really carry the burden for the Blue Jays starting rotation this year, but he was underwhelming overall, posting an ERA over 4. He has electrifying stuff overall, but he just wasn't able to harness it this year. The Orioles ended up losing to the Blue Jays in that one wild card game, 5-2, and the Orioles were eliminated from the playoffs, and the Blue Jays went on to face the Rangers in the ALDS. On the next side of things, the Indians faced the Red Sox in the ALDS. The Indians swept the Red Sox in 3 games, thanks to Trevor Bauer having an exciting performance in Game 1, Corey Kluber shutting things down in Game 2, and then Josh Tomlin, who barely walks anybody, and he has very good control. He was able to secure the series sweep against the Boston Red Sox, who had the best offense in baseball, and many experts early on in the year had picked them to go to the World Series, but they were swept in the first round of the division series. The Indians were also helped by Tyler Naquin, who is a potential Rookie of the Year candidate for the American League, and Francisco Lindor, who is electrifying with the bat, but is more well known for his glove coming up through the minors. On a 20 to 80 scale, he was routinely rated a 60 or above for his glove and for his arm. So the guy's just downright awesome on defense, and he's going to be looking at potentially getting a Golden Glove this year for his defense at shortstop. There's also Jason Kipnis, who plays second base, who has been really good this year, and they're all emerging as premier young talent that the Indians have to go along with one of the best rotations in baseball. And the Indians definitely could have a little bit more firepower if Michael Brantley hadn't been dealing with a shoulder injury that lasted the entire season. The guy played not even 20 games. And if they'd had him starting in right field rather than Lonnie Chisenhall, not to say that Chisenhall isn't good, but Brantley is definitely an upgrade over Chisenhall. And having Brantley in that number 3 or 4 hole would definitely help the lineup to be a lot better. Brantley had a 292, he is a 292 career average hitter, so that just speaks to his ability to get on base and to put the ball in play. On the other side of the things for the Boston Red Sox, which was a storied season for David Ortiz, he is going off having been a career 286 hitter with 541 home runs, which ranks 17th all time. Many people think that Ortiz is going to try to continue being in baseball, whether it be with the Red Sox or broadcasting. But his career just speaks to the ability that he has had to get on base and to especially produce in the playoffs when the spotlight is right on him. John Farrell was announced that he will return as the manager for the Boston Red Sox in 2017. He has an option for 2018, but Dave Dombrowski, president of baseball operations for the Boston Red Sox, has not yet told the media or anybody whether John Farrell's 2018 option will be picked up. But Farrell overall, having been with the Red Sox for about 3 seasons so far, since being acquired from the Toronto Blue Jays when he was their manager, is 493 wins to 479 losses. So overall, he's done a pretty decent job. David Price in the playoffs is 0-8 all time. He really just has to step up his game. When he pitched Game 2, he was not very good, Porcello was not very good in Game 1. He gave up 3 home runs in 1 inning. The two of them have to really focus on bouncing back from horrendous playoff performances. Porcello was really good during the regular season. He registered a 22-4 record, and he's looking at a possible Cy Young. So he was pretty good, but Price, on the other hand, was not, especially being paid $217 million. He had an ERA 3.99, and he needs to get better. Eddie Rodriguez is also looking to step up in the rotation right next year. The Red Sox are looking at bringing back Clay Buchholz, who has a $13.5 million option for next year, as opposed to a $500,000 buyout. But the thinking is that Buchholz will be brought back. There's also rumors that the Red Sox are looking at bringing in Edwin Encarnacion, who registered 42 home runs this year, to replace Ortiz at DH. No matter what the Red Sox try to do, through their system or through free agency or trades, it is very unlikely the Red Sox will be able to replicate the success and the numbers that Ortiz has been able to put up for the Boston Red Sox. Going on to the other side of the things on the ALDS, the Blue Jays swept the Rangers surprisingly. Not to say that the Blue Jays aren't bad, but the Rangers had the best record in the American League. J.A. Happ, Aaron Sanchez both had ERAs around 3 this season, and Marcus Estrada made the All-Star game, and all 3 of them are studs and helped to lead the Toronto Blue Jays to sweep the Texas Rangers. Jose Bautista, the right fielder, is looking at free agency this winter, and it is possible he's extended a qualifying offer for $16.7 million. He had an isolated power of 217 this year, which registers the amount of hits that he has that goes for extra base hits. So overall, that's really good to have an isolated power over 200, but his numbers have been trending down. He had a 234 average this year, which is well below the 255 league average for hitters. But the Blue Jays have been okay with the front office since hiring Mark Shapiro and letting Alex Anthopoulos go to the Los Angeles Dodgers. On the other side of things, Cole Hamels would have been the Game 4 starter for the Texas Rangers had they made it to Game 4. But the Rangers didn't. They had solid performances from Colby Lewis and Martin Perez and the rest of their pitching staff. To go along with that, they acquired Jonathan Lucroy from the Dodgers at the July trade deadline. They have Jurickson Profar, who slots in between second and shortstop, Elvis Andrus, and possible Rookie of the Year Nomar Mazara, to go along with Ronald Odor, who plays second base and has unprecedented power for a second baseman. Center fielder Ian Desmond is looking at free agency again this winter after signing a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Texas Rangers. He is a common 20-20 player, 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases, but he usually has an OBP in the 330 range, which is decent, but for a player of his caliber, you would think that he'd have a higher OBP. But that's okay. The Rangers have a lineup that is anchored by Lucroy and Mazara and all this premier young talent that John Daniels, their general manager, has put together. It is an inspiring team for the future, and many analysts think that the Rangers will be one of the American League's top contenders for the World Series for the next couple years to come. The American League Championship Series will be between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Cleveland Indians. It is interesting to think who will win that series and in how many games, because the ALCS switches from 5 games to a 7-game series, whereas opposed the ALDS was only 5. Same for the National League. But it'll be interesting to see who faces up against the NLCS winner, pending who wins the Nationals versus the Dodgers series. Potentially, the Cubs could make it and go to the World Series